Grand Rising Loves. This is the altar spread for the collective today. And so the sacred geometry that showed up for today is morning meeting. And so this is how we communicate with everything, with nature and with other humans. And as you see, it's got the directive power of masculine with those beautiful straight lines, and then the circular lines representing feminine energy. It's balance. It represents communication. And just like chrysocolla that keeps showing up as a stone, talking about how you express yourself, it speaks your desires into the universe, but it's also about intent. And in every communication, we are teaching others about ourselves. And so is that coming from your highest intent? And are you in your full integrity when you express yourself? And so morning meeting is asking you to be aware of that, to pay attention to how you communicate. And are you in a good exchange? And so communicating with nature is about, this is my environment. And I am so grateful for how this environment protects me, holds me, nurtures me, provides for me. And so gratitude is such a huge part of that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this space with me. Thank you for supporting me in this human experience. And of others, everything should be a cohesive communication. And so that's what morning meeting is about. So bring yourself constantly back to that space today. How am I communicating with others? How am I communicating with everything? Because there's no such thing as an inanimate object. Am I thanking this chair for holding me? Am I thanking this glass for holding this water? Am I thanking the water for hydrating me, for replenishing and purifying the water that exists inside of me already? And so Blade showed up. And so Blade is also asking you to be aware of how you wield the power of the blade. And so the blade has been used in sacred ceremonies since the dawn of man, and pointed to the sky as a directive power of command. Pointed down to the earth is a grounding power of claiming. And you can also use the blade to sever etheric cords and toxic connections that are draining your energy and impeding your evolution and your spiritual path. And so directive power of the blade is really important to be mindful of that, mindful of the communication, but also recognizing Blade as your ally and communicating that thank you for your support in this human experience. And so I had a conversation this morning about severing toxic connections with people that maybe you cannot converse with in your human form. And so you do that in the ether. Your higher self can commune with their higher self. And it's not, okay, there's a difference between calling them out and saying, come, speak with me, your higher self and my higher self, let's hash this out and figure this out and create a cohesive relationship between us, than going into their energy without permission. That is a bindable offense, and that is not okay. And so now I'm going to describe a very specific scenario so that you can know the difference. Now, people can attach cords without knowing, like parents to their children, because you want to save them from less than pleasurable experiences or pain, emotional pain or trauma. And so a lot of times parents unknowingly will process for their children, and it creates etheric cords. And so it's also important to stay in your highest integrity there. That's not being a good parent. it's actually robbing them of the experience that they chose before the coming into the human experience. And that may sound callous, and the point is, what is within your control? What is within your control? There is nothing within your control except you, right? And so if you are operating from a heart-centeredness, your highest integrity, highest intent, then everything that's showing up in your reality should reflect that. And if you're experiencing any discord, you first have to check yourself and then go outward. But if someone is experiencing a rough spot, you can be support in that without actually processing for them, which would create cords, okay? So there is a particular woman who multiple times psychically attacked me. And so I bound her, and this was years back. And she was experiencing immediate karmic punishment for that. And so in order to stop the perpetuating of that energy, because she was very persistent, so obviously working under some other energetic, and I needed to let her know, like, this isn't okay. Maybe you don't recognize who I am. So in meditation, I sat at my altar, I lit a candle specifically, and I asked permission of her higher self to come and communicate with me. So it's very different than me trying to connect with the human her. That's creating cords. That is trespassing. That is not okay. That is not okay unless you're doing that with permission. It can be a beautiful experience sharing energy across long distances. I do that a lot in my healing work, but I don't ever do it without permission. That's like walking up in someone's house without permission. You just don't do it. It's rude. And it is a punishable offense. So I called out her higher self. I said, so-and-so, I would like to communicate with you, my higher self with your higher self, meaning that we are both completely in spirit so that we can communicate from our highest intent. And you can possibly receive the communication I am sending better than the egoic human that you're normally operating from. And so I just let her know, this is not okay. This is now 3 times that you have psychically attacked me, and it's not going to fare well for you. And I wielded an etheric blade, and I freed myself of all energetic connections, karmic ties, etheric cords, and you just imagine yourself cutting through it. You can imagine huge scissors if you want, or a sword, or a machete, and whatever is your symbol of ultimate power. Whatever is your symbol of ultimate power. I have a copper blade that I use, and I also have an obsidian blade, which is amazing because it is an authentic tool, ancient tool. And I use those in my sacred practices as well. So that keeps you also in your highest integrity, because then you don't react from trauma or ego and try to attack them back, or become angry in your human experience and perpetuate maybe old trauma that you have. Maybe that's why it's showing up. But in your highest intent, you can create that cohesiveness. You can communicate from a place that is more harmonious, and that's important because this is all energy. Everything is energy. And so the stone that showed up is rose quartz, and I love this because this is about being in your highest intent and integrity, because in our truest form, we are pure, vibrating love energy. Love is the only truth. The only truth. So I have different many different rose quartz, but I wanted to show you because this is a good opportunity to talk about the different shapes of crystals. So spheres take the energy of the stone and fill the entire space with it. So it's like flushing the space. Imagine this spiral of energy just washing through a space. So I am actually putting love into my entire space with a sphere of rose quartz. And that always stays on my altar. Pyramids. This is a rose quartz pyramid, is directive power. So when I want to concentrate love into something, I can pull it into this point and disperse it into something specific. So in meditation or in sacred ceremony, burning ceremonies, sometimes I will write a list of forgiveness and anchor it. I just put it on top of it like that, meditate on that, forgiving those people with love, because it's always important, because forgiveness not only frees them, but frees you. And it's important to use love, because love is the only thing that can heal. And I can't remember the Martin Luther King quote. It's an amazing quote talking about hate cannot cast out hate. Only love can do that. And that's so true. But hate is not the opposite of love. Know that. Hate actually comes from the same place as love. Hate is love betrayed. And so when I was raising my kids, I would always tell them, you cannot say you hate anything unless you've loved it first. So when I would hear them say, I hate that. Oh, really? I want to hear you say you love it first. Tell me that you love it. And then they would be really thoughtful about that. If you think about anything that you've ever felt a deep hate for, it's because you have loved it first and it betrayed you or acted in a way that was harmful. And that's what damages that frequency. So hate is not the opposite of love. It's actually quite love. And so feel into that. The absence of love is fear. Fear casts out love. And so when you become fierce and fearless, you embody the true essence of who you are, and you open yourself as a pure vessel of love. Think about that. Here's a palm stone. Palm stones are what I use in my healing sessions, and they actually pull that love energy into the body. And I like this one. I just think it's cool. It's more rare to see like straight lines through rose quartz, and so I thought that was pretty cool. It's like a striped rose quartz. Anyhow, so Chakana showed up, time to cross the threshold. The threshold is that which cannot be crossed back over. So it's saying you are now entering a rebirth and you cannot go backwards. So don't even look back. Just go and know that change is coming and it's going to feel completely out of your control. But you are meant to learn surrender. And so just because something is difficult in the process of change does not mean that you are misaligned or on the wrong path. A lot of times the difficulty is to refine you. It's like putting a rock into a tumbler so that it can come out a gem. And that's turning like a raw form stone into a beautiful faceted stone. And so be aware of that process and know that change is occurring whether you asked for it or not. It is something that you chose before the human experience. And so you are now crossing that threshold. And what will make it easier is being aware of how you communicate, being aware of your ties and how you wield the blade of the human experience? And are you vibrating at a frequency of love or ego? This is very important. Very, very important. Because honestly, these 3 cards are talking about intent and being in your highest integrity and operating from a place of love when you communicate, operating from a place of love when you wield a blade. And the stone itself, of course, brings that same exact message. That's what makes moving through the transition far, far easier. And so that's the spread for today. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.